practices that serve the healing of the earth. And the older generation carries this in their hands and in their experience and in the wisdom and in the gems that Mac and Gunther and Harald and Walter and all these people in the audience and beyond are able to share with us. But the young people are approaching not only with this wish to connect to the spiritual ideal, but also with different gifts and with different capacities. And so they need to connect to this ideal in the free way that I can say Gunther has allowed for me. Yeah. So, I'm supposed to bring the animal and the soul. I leave my soul here for you. And just to say that, Gunther has been doing this work for over 40 years, for a very long time. It's amazing to be at a conference like this, because I'm always approached like, you're at Spikenard? You know Gunther Hauk? Because everybody knows this guy somehow, and he's taught so many people. I just feel our movement also and our community has a real gem here. So without further ado, I love to introduce Gunther, and thank you.
It is a great pleasure to be among you and with you. And you know, a snowflake only finds its beauty if there's a little piece of dirt in the center. That's how I feel, looking at these three.
I'm not trying to take that.
Talk about relationship. So instead of telling you about the spirit self and the life spirit and spirit man and all these things, I will just tell you a few stories too. About relationship. In 1994, I was asked if I would return to the United States to build up something and bring gardening for children to the water schools and so on. So it was a third call. So for me, spiritually, you never miss the third call. So for me it was clear I have to come, but I had to sort of trick my wife into coming too. So in '95 we came and looked at it. It was a piece of land that had actually been farmed, gardened by Ehrenfried Pfeiffer, who brought biodynamics basically to America. One of the young students of Steiner, who became a chemist then. And that piece of land had morphed into a dump. Tree trunks were there and piles of chips and everything. And a young 19-year-old person was killed right there in a drug deal. So that was scary, and I was able to turn it around and ask this young person on the other side to be the guardian of that piece of land. And I think the blessing is still there, yes. And I related to that land and formed a relationship already in Germany. I modeled that piece of land in clay, seeing where the path and all that. Get a real feeling, developing an ideal, a vision for that piece of land. And then when we came in '96, fortunately an architect, Michael Schack, was there. And he said, wouldn't it be better to put the path in a different location? And I looked and I said, absolutely right. So you have to sometimes let your vision be improved by somebody else. So Mac, within a year, became a co-worker and a friend, and we made the preparations together for 10 years and built up the programs that are still vibrant and there, and others have been added to it. And I want to talk more about not the successes, but the difficulties that you all encounter when you have a good idea to do something good for the earth. You will always encounter difficulties, challenges, attacks, whatever. And you can't always be the nice guy. And that has to come out of your higher self, out of your individuality. So I'll tell you a few things. The first thing, the first challenge was the name. So we were thinking, what should we call this new baby? And I said, the Pfeiffer Center or the Pfeiffer Institute, and the objections came right away. Well, it can be confused with a Pfeiffer Foundation, and another person said, you can't name something new for a dead person. And I said, well, Pfeiffer isn't dead. I have a relationship with him every day. And so it took weeks till I won, and we named it the Pfeiffer Center. And he also is a guardian of this impulse. The next attack came when we were going to be sprayed against the West Nile virus. And Meg and two other people and I, we went to the health department. And we talked to the directors there, and we said, if we get sprayed, you're going to have a lawsuit. Big amazement, because people were asking why they hadn't come to them already with a spray. So we talked about it, that we have a biodynamic farm, a biodynamic garden, we have bees and so on. And in that course of the conversation, a book was named, Silent Spring. None of the people at the health department had even heard about it. That's why these mistakes are being repeated, a lack of history, a lack of awareness. The next challenge came, and it's a challenge whether you can keep the vision for the beauty and the health of what you are creating. The next challenge came, I wanted to have a sculpture in the center of the garden, and we asked an artist to make a sculpture, a model, and he made a beautiful sculpture model for it, about 5 feet tall. And we said, go ahead, that's great. Well, somebody taught him how to weld, and he welded something, and we put that 15-foot welded structure into the center of the garden, and it frightened me. And I wasn't the only one that was frightened. And after a week and a half, it was me who had to go to him. He was a colleague. And I said, I can't have it. It doesn't fit in the garden. Don't ever mess with an artist. He was so furious, he shut the lights off, and I had to grope my way to the exit in darkness. And other things happened too. Anyway. But it was either the garden or a friendship of a colleague. So you have to see what really comes, what fits your vision and the being that is there. It's like your child, really. And you don't let anyone say, let me snip the earlobe off your child, it's going to look better. No, we're not going to allow that. The next thing came, this one guy, I forgot his name, from New Jersey came and said, I want to make some experiments growing things in concrete blocks and using green sand. I said, well, that doesn't fit my vision. He didn't like me. So, you know, these are the things that will come to you. And in all of that, it's not that you're the bad guy all the time, but, you know, a lot of joy has been there with the interns, with the colleagues, with the students, with the class participants, and with students that came in from New York City. I remember one group came, 11th graders from the Bronx, and I led them to a beautiful cow dung compost, basically finished. And I reached into it and gave the first guy a handful and said, smell it, and pass it on. And they smelled it and passed it on. And I asked them, how did it smell? Yeah, great, like wood, like in the forest. And one guy even said, hamburger. When I told him that it was cow dung, the reaction was quite different. So these are the joys that also are part of the gardening. And Sally Burns, who just passed away at 98, she lived right next to the garden and she was a fantastic shot at 80. And I'd get a call, I got another one. Groundhogs. So I developed a relationship to groundhogs. Not a good one. So when I put chicken wire along the fence and buried it 3 feet out, I would watch the groundhogs coming up to the fence, scratching and burrowing and frustrated going away. And I'm almost ashamed to say I had no compassion with their frustration. So these are things, when you build up something, you have to, if it's good, you have to encounter resistance. If it's not good, the spirits of resistance and hindrance are going to leave you alone. So a sign that it's good is actually that you encounter some resistance and some difficulties. And be ready, and when you're ready, you can cope with it. So yes, I told threefold that I would retire at 65. They didn't believe me at that time, but I did retire at 65. And fortunately, Mac came and spent a year at the Pfeiffer Center with me, and it was a beautiful transition, and he not only carried it on and developed it more. And Megan was my last intern at the Pfeiffer Center, and she is carrying that on. It's a great gift to have that kind of transition. And 5 years ago, Alex came as an intern, and within a year, less than a year, he became a co-worker and staff member, and he's carrying it on. So deep, deep gratitude fills me for this faith. And it all has to do with praying and with giving gratitude and giving thanks to the spiritual world that helps, the spiritual, your own angel, the spirit of our time, Michael. They are all engaged, and the friends on the other side that are helping. It doesn't go by itself. It doesn't go by itself. And I'm just so happy and grateful that the biodynamic movement has grown in this leadership, and there are more people and young people here who will have to step in and carry on. And you can be young at 75 and 85, so I'm just not meaning the 20-year-olds, you know. So there's a lot to be done. There's a lot to be done for the world. And that ego being that Steiner calls each farm should become that individuality, there is no better help than you keeping your vision and seeing what fits and what doesn't, and having the guts to say to something, no, that doesn't fit. That is as important as welcoming people to help. And the road is not an easy one, but it's a joyful one. Anthroposophy is a path that will enrich your life. It won't make life easier. Life is supposed to be hard. Read the book, The Road Less Traveled by Peck, you know. It starts off with, love is work, work, work. And there's a German saying, work makes life sweet. And the bees show us in the best way what that means. So, forming relationships down below us with the elemental beings, above us with the hierarchies, and at the same level with our friends, with our volunteers, with our staff, with our supporters, with our donors, with our helpers. All of that needs to be nurtured. Nurturing is actually at the heart of a biodynamic farm. And the preparations are so great. So I'll start with the soil. What this 500 does is it enlivens the soil. Not only are the critters more abundant, Will Brinton is able to say a lot about that, you know, but you're enlivening it with the forces of the heavens and the forces of the earth. And this enlivening brings the mineral soil 1/2 step up toward the plant. And the plants are so happy in that. And they grow so well because the soil has enlivened, it has been enlivened and has come up a little bit closer to being a plant. And the plant that needs this healthy surrounding and grounding in order to come into its own being. And we can help with a silica spray in the summer and with good compost and all that. And then, like Max said, the plants look different. They taste different. Within 1 year at the Pfeiffer Center, next summer I was able to bring a whole crate of cucumbers to the kitchen. And the next day, the lady in the kitchen said, I didn't know cucumbers could smell so good and taste so good. That is quality. That is the joy of raising veggies that are really not only good nutritionally, they are medicine. So with these preparations, we raise the plant, the food plant, to become medicinal plants for us. And the relationship of the animals living off that land, that changes it too. The cows have a better digestion. Their manure is different because they have analyzed what this farm needs. And the relationship with a human being has made them different than the wild animals. They've really come close to our hearts and our minds and our care, and they will give better milk and better meat and everything else if they are well cared for. So this is raising that farm onto a higher level, on every level, on the soil, the plant, the animal, and what we care for the human beings that then eat this food and look at it. And like Alex said, Yeah, people come to Spikenard Farm, and there are people who tear up because they experience something at another level. And in all these difficulties that you will encounter and all that, don't forget the joy. Don't forget the humor. And that is as important for you braving it and keeping it up and having the joy that is in it. And delving deeper and deeper into the spiritual background of biodynamics is a deeply fulfilling joy. It's work, and you can work every day without sacrificing any time. You can read 1 page or 1 sentence or 10 pages before you go to sleep. And within 7-8 months, you have finished one of the basic books. And you haven't sacrificed any time. People say, I don't have any time for that. It's a lie. It's a lie. We waste so much time every day that you can spend that time. But it takes will, and that's great. So I want to entreat the good spirits guiding this work to give their blessing on each and everyone's attempt and work for this, because the world needs it, the spiritual world needs it too. And I want to close with a one-liner by Steiner. It may be my favorite short verse by Steiner. The spiritual goals which bring people together form the most noble bonds of friendship. So my best wishes go to you, dear friends.